at the part 5, and let's read it. Just listen to me. In the Temple of Light, Tirtil had enjoyed himself truly in the kingdom of the future. He has seen many wonderful things and thousands of little playfellows, and then, without taking the least pains or trouble, he found the blue bird in his arms in the most magical way. He had never pictured anything more beautiful, more blue or brilliant, and he still felt it fluttering against his heart, and kept hugging his arms to his breast, as though the blue bird were there. Alas, it had vanished like a dream. He was thinking sadly of this latest disappointment as he walked hand in hand with Light. They were back in the temple, and were going to the vaults where the animals and things had been shut up. What a sight met their eyes! The wretches had eaten and drunk such a lot that they were lying on the floor, quite tipsy. Tilo himself had lost all his dignity. He had rolled under the table and was snoring like a porpoise. His instinct remained, and the sound of the door made him prick up his ears. He opened one eye, but his sight was troubled by all that he had to drink, and he did not know his little master when he saw him. He dragged himself to his feet with a great effort, turned around several times, and then dropped on the floor again with a grunt of satisfaction. Brad and the others were as bad, and the only exception was the cat, who was sitting up prettily on a marble and gold bench, and seemed in full possession of her senses. She sprang nimbly to the ground, and stepped up to Tiltil with a smile. "I have been longing to see you," she said, "for I have been very unhappy among all these vulgar people. They first drank all the wine, and then started shouting and singing and dancing, quarreling and fighting, and making such a noise that I was very glad when at last they fell into a tipsy sleep." The children praised her warmly for her good behavior. As a matter of fact, there was no great merit in this, for she could not stand anything stronger than milk. But we are seldom rewarded when by rights we ought to be, and sometimes are when we have not deserved it. Uh, Remember that in reality milk is not good for cats because it upsets the stomach. After fondly kissing the children, Tylet asked a favor of Light. "I have such a wretched time," she whined. "Let me go out for a little while. It will do me good to be alone." Light gave her consent without suspecting anything, and the cat at once draped her cloak around her, put her hat straight, pulled up her soft grey boots over her knees, opened the door, and ran and bounded out into the forest. We shall know a little later where treacherous Tilette was going so gaily, and what was the horrid plot which she was mysteriously concocting. As on the other days, the children had their dinner with Light in a large room all encrusted with diamonds. The servants bustled around them, smiling, and brought delicious dishes and cakes. After dinner, our little friends began to yawn. They felt sleepy very early after all their adventures. Light, ever kind and thoughtful, made them lie as they were accustomed to on earth. So, as to not injure their health by altering their habits, she set up their little beds in a part of the temple where the darkness would seem like night to them. They went through any number of rooms to reach their bedroom. They had first to pass all the lights known to man, and then those which man did not know yet. There were great sumptuous apartments in splendid marble, lit up by rays so wide and strong that the children were quite dazzled. "That is the light of the rich," said Light to Tiltil. "You see how dangerous it is. People run the risk of going blind when they live too much in its rays, which leave no room for soft and kindly shade." And she hurried them on so that they might rest their eyes in the gentle light of the poor. This is not true again. Here the children suddenly felt as if they were in the parents' cottage, where everything was so humble and peaceful. The faint light was very pure and clear, but always flickering and ready to go out at the least breath. Next, they came to the beautiful light of the poets, which they liked immensely, for it had all the colors of the rainbow. And when you passed through it, you saw lovely pictures, lovely flowers, and lovely toys, which you were unable to take hold of. Laughing merrily, the children ran after birds and butterflies, but everything faded away as soon as he was touched. "Well, I never," said Tiltil as he came panting back to light. "This beats everything. I can't understand it." "You will understand later," she replied. "And if you understand it properly, you will be among the very few human beings who know the bluebird when they see him." After leaving the region of the poets, our friends reached the light of the learned, which lies on the borders of the known and unknown lights. "Let's get on," said Tiltil. "This is boring." To tell the truth, he was a little bit frightened, for they were in a long row of cold and forbidding arches, which were streaked at every moment by dazzling, lightning flashes. And at each flash, you saw out of the way things that had no name as yet. After these arches, they came to the lights unknown to man, and Tiltil, in spite of the sleep that pressed upon his eyelids, could not help admiring the hall with its violet columns and the gallery with its red rays. And the violet of the columns was such as a dark violet, and the red of the rays such a pale red that it was hardly possible to see either of them. At last they arrived at a room of smooth, unflecked black light, which men call darkness, because their eyes are not yet able to make it out. And here the children fell asleep without delay on two soft beds of clouds. Chapter 7. The Graveyard. He says, unlock your imagination. When the children were not going on an expedition, they played about in the realms of light, and this was a great treat for them, for the gardens and the country around the temple were as wonderful as the halls and galleries of silver and gold. The leaves of some of the plants were so broad and strong that they were able to lie down on them, and when a breath of wind stirred the leaves, the children swung as in a hammock. It was always summer there, and never a moment was darkened by the night. But the hours were known by their different colors. They were pink, white, blue, lilac, green, and yellow hours. Cute! And according to their use, the flowers, the fruits, the birds, the butterflies, and the scents changed, causing Tiltil and Metil a constant surprise. They had all the toys that they could wish for. When they were tired of playing, they stretched themselves out on the backs of the lizards, which were as long as wide as little boats, and quickly raced around the garden patch, over the sand, which was as white and as good to eat as sugar. When they were thirsty, water shook her tresses, some villagers, her tresses into the cup of the enormous flowers, and the children drank straight out of the lilies, tulips, and morning glories. If they were hungry, they picked radiant fruits which revealed the taste of light to them, and which had juice that shone like the rays of the sun. There was also in a clump of bushes a white marble pond which possessed a magic power. Its clear waters reflected not the faces, but the souls of those who looked into it. "It's a ridiculous invention," said the cat, who steadily refused to go near the pond. "You, my dear little readers, who know her thoughts as well as I do, will not be surprised at her refusal, and you will also understand why our faithful Tilo was not afraid to go and quench his thirst there. He need no fear to reveal his thoughts, for he was the only creature whose soul never altered. The dear dog had no feelings but those of love and kindness and devotion. When Tiltil bent over the magic mirror, he almost always saw the picture of a splendid blue bird, for the constant wish to find him filled his mind entirely. Then he would run to Light and entreat her. "Tell me where he is. You know everything. Tell me where to find him." But she replied in a tone of mystery, "I cannot tell you anything. You must find him for yourself." And kissing him, she added, "Cheer up. You are getting nearer to him at each trial." Now, there came a day on which she said to him, "I have received a message from the fairy Berilun telling me that the bluebird is probably eaten in the graveyard. It appears that one of the dead in the graveyard is keeping him in his tomb." "What shall we do?" asked Tiltil. "It is very simple. At midnight you will turn the diamond and you shall see the dead come out of the ground." At these words, milk, water, bread, and sugar began to yell and scream and chatter their teeth. "Don't mind them," said Light to Tiltil. In a whisper, "They are afraid of the dead." "Not afraid of them," said Fire, frisking about. "Time was when I used to burn them. That was much more amusing than nowadays." "Oh, I feel I am going to turn," wailed Milk. "I'm not afraid," said the dog, trembling in every limb. "But if you run away, I shall run away too, and with the greatest pleasure." The cat sat pulling at her whiskers. "I know what's what," she said in her usual mysterious way. "Be quiet," said Light. "The fairy gave strict orders. You are all to stay with me at the gate of the graveyard. The children are to go in alone." Tiltil felt anything but pleased. He asked, "Aren't you coming with us?" "Oh, you know what? I'll put myself here so you see more of the mountains." "No," said Light. The time for that has not arrived. Light cannot yet enter among the dead. Besides, there is nothing to fear. I shall not be far away, and those who love me and whom I love always find me again." She had not finished speaking when everything around the children changed. The wonderful temple, the dazzling flowers, the splendid gardens vanished to make way for a poor little country cemetery which lay in the soft moonlight. Near the children were a number of graves, grassy mounds, wooden crosses, and tombstones. Tiltil and Mitil were seized with terror and hugged each other. "I am frightened," said Mitil. "I am never frightened," stammered Tiltil, who was shaking with fear, but did not like to say so. "I say," asked Mitil, "are the dead wicked?" "Why no?" said Tiltil. "They are not alive. Have you ever seen one?" "Yes, once, long ago, when I was very young." "What was it like?" Quite white, very still, and very cold, and he didn't talk. Are we going to see them? Tiltil shuddered at this question and made an unsuccessful effort to steady his voice as he answered. Why, of course, Light said so. Where are the dead? asked Mithil. Tiltil cast a frightened look around him, for the children had not dared to stir since they were alone. The dead are here, he said, under the grass or under those big stones. Are those the doors of their houses? asked Mithil, pointing to the tombstones. Yes. Do they go out when it's fine? They can only go out at night. Why? Because they are in their night shorts. Do they go out also when it rains? When it rains, they stay at home. Is it nice in their homes? They say it's very cramped. Have they any little children? Why, yes, they have all those who die. And what do they live on? Tiltil stopped to think before answering. As Mithil's big brother, he felt it his duty to know everything, but the questions often puzzled him. Then he reflected that, as the dead live underground, they can hardly eat anything that is above it. And so he answered very positively. They eat roots. Mithil was quite satisfied and returned to the great question that was occupying her little mind. Shall we see them? She asked. Of course, said Tiltil. We see everything when I turn the diamond. And what will they say? Tiltil began to grow impatient. They will say nothing, as they don't talk. Why they don't talk? asked Mithil. Because they have nothing to say, said Tiltil, more cross and perplexed than ever. Why have they nothing to say? This time the little big brother lost all patience. He shrugged his shoulders, gave Mithil a push, and shouted angrily, You're a nuisance! Mithil was greatly upset and confused. She sucked her thumb and resolved to hold her tongue forever after. She had been so badly treated. But a breath of wind made the leaves of the trees whisper, and suddenly recalled the children to their fears and their sense of loneliness. They hugged each other tight and began to talk again, so as not to hear the horrible silence. When will you turn the diamond? asked Mithil. You heard Light say that I was to wait until midnight, because that disturbs them less. It is when they come out to take the air. Isn't it midnight yet? Tiltil turned around, saw the church clock, and hardly had the strength to answer, for the hands were just upon the hour. Listen, he stammered, listen, it is just going to strike. There, do you hear? And the clock struck 12. Then Mithil, frightened out of her life, began to stamp her feet and utter piercing screams. I want to go away, I want to go away. Tiltil, though stiff with fright, was able to say, Not now, I am going to turn the diamond. No, no, cried Mithil. I am so frightened, little brother. Don't do it. I want to go away. Tiltil vainly tried to lift his hand. He could not reach the diamond with Mithil clinging to him, hanging with all her weight on her brother's arm, and screaming at the top of her voice. I don't want to see the dead. They will be awful. I can't possibly. I am much too frightened. Poor Tiltil was quite as much terrified as Mithil, but at each trial, his will and courage were becoming greater. He was learning to master himself, and nothing could induce him to fail in his mission. The 11th stroke rang out. The hours is passing, he exclaimed. It is time. And releasing himself resolutely from Mithil's arms, he turned the diamond. A moment of terrible silence followed for the poor little children. Then they saw the crosses totter, the mounds open, the slabs rise up. Mithil hid her face against Tiltil's chest. They're coming out, she cried. They're there. They're there. The agony was more than the plucky little fellow could endure. He shut his eyes and only kept himself from fainting while leaning against the tree beside him. He remained like that for a minute, that seemed to him like a century, not daring to move, not daring to breathe. Then he heard birds singing. A warm and scented breeze fanned his face, and on his hands, on his neck, he felt the soft heat of the balmy summer sun. Now, quite reassured, but unable to believe in so great a miracle, he opened his eyes and at once began to shout with happiness and admiration. From all the open tombs came thousands of splendid flowers. They spread everywhere, on the paths, on the trees, on the grass, and they went up and up until it seemed that they would touch the sky. They were great full-blown roses, showing their hearts, wonderful golden hearts, from which came the hot, bright rays which had wrapped Till in that summer warmth. Round the roses, birds sang, and bees buzzed gaily. "I can't believe it! It's not possible," said Till. "What has become of the tombs and the stone crosses?" Dazzled and bewildered, the two children walked hand in hand through the graveyard, of which not a trace remained, for there was nothing but a wonderful garden on every side. They were as glad and happy as could be after their terrible fright. They had thought that ugly skeletons would rise from the earth and run after them, pulling horrid faces. They had imagined all sorts of awful things. And now, in the presence of the truth, they saw that all that they had been told was a great big story, and that does not exist. They saw that there are no dead, and that life goes on always, always, under fresh forms. The fading rose sheds its pollen, which gives birth to other roses, and its scattered petals scent the air. The fruits come when the blossoms fall from the trees, and the tiny, airy caterpillar turns into a brilliant butterfly. Nothing perishes, there are only changes. Beautiful birds circled all around Till and Mithil. There were no blue ones among them, but the two children were so glad of their discovery that they asked for nothing more. Astonished and delighted, they kept on repeating, "There are no dead, there are no dead." We stop here. The next chapter will be the forest. See you next time.